So, may the universal intelligence enter your soul and fill you with peace and presence. I know you've all just listened to someone else speak. Obviously, being a lawyer by trade and I'm trying to break some bad habits, I never let a chance to speak go, so I'm only going to take about 5 minutes of your time, split into two parts. One spiritual and one political. So, the spiritual lesson today, the quick one is, the flaws that you hate the most about yourself may be secret strengths. And so you should let go of all your insecurity and all your regret of your past. It's important to understand not to be arrogant, not to think that one has all the knowledge in the world. And a lot of times we think we do. And so when you're judging yourself so harshly, a lot of it's from arrogance, that you really think you know the whole entire universal plan. But a lot of times, what we see as flaws are really hidden strengths. And this arises from limiting beliefs. For example, the belief that time is finite leads to a lot of our troubles. Time is infinite. It goes on forever. No one has ever experienced the end of time, and no one ever will. And in that vast amount of time, the worries that we thought we had will blow away. Like the leaves do every single season. Things change. Things transform. And part of that transformation needs to be accepted. And when it's fought against, it can never be overcome. Life is a process of transformation. Duality is built into the fiber of existence. And once you realize that duality is in the fiber of existence, and you accept it, you'll understand that some things you fear aren't terrible things. For example, death. Death is not a terrible thing. We fear it because we think we're finite creatures. We don't understand that time is infinite. All of the cells in your body were multiple other living forms, multiple times, and they died. And what we assumed was the end was just the beginning. All of those things had to die and transform for the universe to give you the form and the shell that is your body now, for your consciousness to inhabit and have this life that you hold so dear. And when that death comes, it won't be the end. It will be the transformation of these cells over an infinite amount of period of time into new forms that your consciousness can inhabit. And so, letting go of the limiting belief that time is finite will let you realize that this transformation is necessary. And you're in a relationship with the universe. Just like when you're in a relationship with a lover. If there's no trust, there's nothing. If there's no faith, there's nothing. And hasn't the universe already given you a form? Against this market set, all the odds, the billions of chances against you existing, and the universe said, time is infinite. While there may have been a billion chances that you wouldn't have existed, what you don't understand is, time is infinite. You can flip the quarter 10 billion times, 20 billion times if you have to, you'll be back, because it's an infinite time scale. And so you'll be back in these forms, and the universe has already given you a beautiful body, all these beautiful things to experience, and it's letting you know through past behavior, just like in a relationship. When a lover's always been faithful and always given you what you needed, the universe is telling you, I'm going to provide. So by doubting the universe, you're causing all kinds of heartache for yourself that's unnecessary. Another factor is your genetics. The universe creates human bodies through genes. And this is just a form, right? And you would do anything for your children. You would make any sacrifice. Well, maybe what flaw you see in yourself right now, and there's a million that I could go, but because we're short today, I'll give you one. Let's say you're a little too rebellious. Let's say we're in a stable society that doesn't need rebellion. And so you're having a little trouble driving the speed limit, stepping over the line. It's getting you a lot of trouble with the law. You're always getting a speeding ticket. You know, you're always getting yelled at in class. This rebellious gene, this is a flaw, right? But this rebellious gene may be needed in the next generation. It was definitely needed in the past when the Nazis took over and they wanted a structured society. That rebellious gene caused people to stand up and to rebel. And in the future, you don't know if passing on this gene to your children, they'll be exactly what's needed in their society. So maybe this flaw in you is again a strength, and the limiting belief that you exist just for yourself is causing you to believe that this is a flaw. But your genes also exist for the next generation. And you would give things for your ancestors. And maybe this gene that you may hold the cross or the burden of was beneficial in their generation. that gave birth to this life and things in it that we appreciate. For example, overcoming slavery. Again, the rebellious gene. If all those people did what they were told, we wouldn't have civil rights. We wouldn't have an end to slavery. And so things that we look at as flaws that are coded into our genetics could have been beneficial in the past and we're reaping gains from, and therefore we can't look a gift horse in the mouth, or they could exceed the expectations of what we know and need now and be beneficial in the future. So those are just two quick examples of the flaws that you think you have may just be because you have limited knowledge of the divine plan. And we all have to play our part in the universal dance, the divine drama. And on the subject of dramas, what story would be fun if there wasn't a struggle, right? If you just sat through a show and there was no bad guy to overcome, nothing to overcome, it would be boring. And when we exploded ourselves into existence, we took these forms so we could enjoy things. And you can lose games, and they don't matter. When you create a game and you lose it, you don't lose sleep because you know it's not real. These forms are just a game to be enjoyed. There'll be more forms to be had, don't worry. But all of these games, you don't have winners. You have winners and losers in these games. And perhaps your loss today is somebody else's win. And you don't have to fret about that because you'll have your time to win in the future. So that's just a quick reminder that the conclusion is the universe has provided for you. It's given you existence. It's given you form. It's given you excitement and adventure. And you have to trust in it and realize that a lot of these self-limiting beliefs and things that you consider flaws when you're wrapped up in what knowledge you have here in this limited moment is leading you down to unnecessary suffering. So forgive yourself for things you've done in the past because you don't know exactly where that's led or what that's done for other people. And forgive your flaws because this is just one form that you'll have of many. So that's the end of our spiritual lecture for today. I kept it short as I could. And as always, I hope the universal intelligence enters you and fills you with peace and presence. Now, unlike normal, we're going to talk a little politics. So this is an article, a local article, and it reads, "Man found dead outside Detroit church as warming centers overwhelmed in cold snap." This human being literally froze to death under the shadow of a church in our neighborhood. And who is going to do anything about it? The question is, we're waiting for our salvation from who? These politicians? You know how many mayors in every city, how many city council members get paid a salary to sit there? You know how many state representatives we have, how many governors we have? You know how many decades they've been in these positions getting paid to do this job? They're not going to save us. They've abandoned our generation. And I hate to be negative, but the salvation for our community is going to come through ourselves. And these religious leaders, no offense, I'm sure some are good meaning, we're going to give them an opportunity today to make sure that people don't die under their giant structures of wealth and freeze to death while their building's empty. And the challenge I would pose to all the religious leaders in our community, we're going to start with Wyandotte and then we're going to spread through Wayne County. And if you're watching this and you're out of the community, I'm also going to post all these materials under our videos so you can end homelessness yourself. Our goal is to end homelessness in all of Wayne County, starting in Wyandotte, without raising taxes, without asking for money from anybody. And the way we're going to do it is very simple. Back in the Middle Ages, when people took spirituality seriously, you could murder somebody and walk up to a church and walk inside and the government couldn't come and get you. The church had to feed you, clothe you, and let you sleep there. It was called sanctuary because they realized that every human being had a soul, and regardless if you were a murderer or a criminal, you could go in this church and be provided for. And so we're asking the modern churches today, what do you stand for? Why do you meet every Sunday? What's the purpose of your beautiful building that sits empty 6 days of the week and is only filled for a couple hours? Is it really to bring salvation to the earth? Because if it is, we're asking you to become a sanctuary church. To let a homeless person sleep in your empty building and use the heat that's kicked on anyways, so they don't freeze to death outside. And so we can end homelessness. No taxes, no anything. These buildings are sitting there, they're sitting empty. And so what we're asking is that every preacher brings to their congregation and looks their own congregation in their eyes and ask them, are you willing to let people freeze to death outside of these structures that are supposed to be dedicated to God? Or will you open our doors to just have one soul in this empty building? Some of them cost $1 million. $1 million buildings erected to the betterment of society, and you're going to let people freeze to death under their structures? This gentleman lost his life. And, again, not to be negative, but we don't want to hear any problems. You have insurance. We don't want to hear that it would take too much work. No thing that is worthwhile is easily achieved. That doesn't have a little sacrifice. The question is it a worthwhile goal? Yes. Saving a human from freezing to death is a worthwhile goal. And the second question is, does the cost of this outweigh whatever other cost? Well, a human life, that outweighs everything. I'm sorry if you have a little problem with your insurance company. I'm sorry if you have to take a call in the middle of the night. You shouldn't be in the business of saying that you're a spiritual person if you can't save other human beings from freezing to death. And so what we're going to do is, we're going to go city by city. I've already printed out the list of every church in Wyandotte. I'm going to take a volunteer, if anybody volunteers, to call these preachers and ask, will you agree to take a homeless person in if a homeless person comes? That day may never come. And you can feel good without even doing anything that you were willing to answer the call if it came. But if it came, will you let somebody sleep in your place instead of freeze to death? And we're going to write next to each church yes or no. And then I'm going to go to the next city council meeting and I'm going to ask them to pass a resolution and give them this list that when the police drive by, instead of throwing people in jail for vagrancy, or even worse, driving right past them, which is what the police are doing in most cities now, and letting them freeze to death on the streets, will you stop, roll your window down, as a human being who's getting paid by all our tax dollars anyways, and ask them if they want to ride to a church? Call on your cell phone the preacher, he'll come open the door, and that person won't have to live on the streets. No taxes, no extra buildings, no extra money, just a little sympathy for fellow human beings. So we're going to start with Wyandotte. It's a simple list. If there's a volunteer that will call the numbers, or if people want to split it, call the numbers, kick it back to me, and we'll ask City Council. And to be honest, not to get too political or negative, anybody on this list that won't take a homeless person should be ashamed to call themselves a creature of God, and let that building that's giant. Some of these buildings could fit a whole entire city. Families upon families could live there. If you can't take one person in your empty building because you're too busy, you're in the wrong business. So thank you guys. And here's the list. We're going to leave it here so there's no personal pressure, but if anybody wants to do it, all you got to do is call and ask, hey, will you take a homeless person in if the call comes? And then kick it back, and I'll go argue it for us. Oh, as always, if you guys want to go forest bathing, we're going for a walk in the park.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.